Hello, everyone, and welcome in to my first edition of the Voice of College Football. Thank you to Justin and everyone associated with the Voice of College Football for allowing me to come on and create content for everybody, because I've been wanting to do this forever, and that's why I started my original podcast, and now I'm merging or joining Justin, I should say, on an established channel, and we're going to look to grow this thing even bigger. So just stay tuned. We got big announcements coming. We're still ironing out some details, but Nebraska did have some breaking news that I wanted to get to right away. 2027, borderline 5-star quarterback, Trae Taylor. He has announced his top 5. Who's in that list? Well, you have LSU. You have Texas A&M. You have his home state school, Illinois. You have Michigan, and then you have Nebraska. Somehow, Nebraska has made his top 5. Early on in his recruitment, it did not look like Nebraska would make that top 5. He kind of took his visit here as just wanted to check things out, and then it just turned into a place that he really started to like. He really started to fall in love with Lincoln, Nebraska. One of the big things he said was that he left feeling very strong about not just Nebraska's football program, but the business program that he wants to go into, which is huge because he's really trying to set himself up after football too. And we all know football isn't forever. There is a shelf life. Eventually you do retire and you still have plenty of life left to live. So you've got to have something you can fall back on, or God forbid you have bad injuries. You have to have that fallback plan. His was the big deal with the business school that Nebraska has. And academics are going to be a big part of his decision. Of course, we know Michigan is a big-time academic school, so they're going to be tough to compete with. I would say Michigan's probably his favorite, and then I think Nebraska is number 2. I think LSU and Illinois are battling for that 3rd spot. I think Texas A&M is kind of out of it, but they're kind of trying to get into it. They're coming in late. But I would certainly, based on everything I've read and heard, I would look at Michigan and then Nebraska as his top 2. Things can change. He did set a commitment date, which is huge. It's June 6th, which is awfully early. And that's one thing, too, that you have to consider is how early these commitments are coming. It used to be your senior year you were committing. Now, this kid's getting ready to start his junior year in the fall. He hasn't even finished his sophomore year of high school, but he's getting ready to commit. Now, the thing is quarterbacks typically, I would say over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, you've seen them start to commit earlier and earlier. And it's huge that they do that because the quarterback is the cornerstone of your recruiting class. Your quarterback is going to be the guy that is trying to get players to come with him. That was what we lost out on with Dylan Raiola, was because he flipped so late. We didn't have that opportunity for him to bring guys with him. That's what you're seeing right now with Dayton Raiola. And that's what we saw with TJ Lateef. He was working Cortez Mills. He was working Dawson Merritt. There was a bunch of different guys that TJ Lateef was involved in recruiting, and Dylan Raiola for last year's class, for that matter. But it's huge to get that quarterback as early as you can, as long as they're ready to commit. Because now he can bring all the guys that he thinks we have a legit chance with. It could take your class from here to here by having an elite QB that has helped recruiting for you. So, like we said, right now Michigan's probably in your lead. Nebraska is shortly or not very far behind. He did say that he always has wanted to play in the SEC, and so that's why I would keep an eye out for LSU and Texas A&M. But I think Nebraska isn't too far from home. Michigan, he said, is like his second home, and Illinois is his home. So I would say you're looking at the 3 Big Ten schools more than likely. That's just my opinion on the matter. The big thing, too, is he wants to go somewhere that can get him to the NFL. And that's the one thing Nebraska doesn't have. Michigan put J.J. McCarthy into the NFL not too long ago. LSU just had the Rookie of the Year, the Offensive Rookie of the Year at quarterback, Jaden Daniels. And so you're competing with schools that have established themselves as putting guys, in particular quarterbacks, into the NFL. Nebraska's a ways away. We think Dylan can be that guy. We need a big jump from year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3. So we're kind of starting to get in that movement of where we can put a quarterback into the NFL. And I think that's what is important to him more than anything, is getting to the NFL and being in a system that can get him to the NFL. And that's one thing he also said in an interview was Nebraska's system is very, very similar to what he runs in high school. He even said Coach Rule is very, very similar to his high school coach in that he loves playing for his high school coach, in that he loves playing for coaches like that. So Nebraska certainly has some things at our advantage that other schools may not have. We don't have the NFL pedigree of quarterbacks, but we've got the system that he likes to play. We've got the coach that he likes to play for. So we've got some things in our favor. So this is someone that we really need to keep an eye out for. June 6th is rolling around quicker than you think. I mean, it's February 13th right now. And before you know it, he's going to be announcing his commitment. He did say he wants to visit all these schools again before he commits. Now, he's already visited Michigan 13 times, and that's going back to 2022. He visited Nebraska twice last season, and things really since those visits have taken off. They've skyrocketed for Nebraska in our favor. So we want to keep tabs on this. The other thing, too, when he originally got his Nebraska offer, he said this: "I'm really excited about this offer. The tradition of Nebraska speaks for itself. This one ranks as one of my top offers, and how Coach Rule did it was amazing. Midfield at Memorial Stadium." That'd be an awesome, awesome place to get your offer. And then he even had this to say about, I think this was after the Wisconsin game. He said, "Man, the crowd was electric. It got really loud in there many times. Loved how the fans greeted me as a recruit," he said. "The stadium and facilities are tops in the country from what I've seen." Okay, so now look, he's visited Michigan 13 times. He's visited Nebraska. He's visited Oklahoma. He's visited LSU. He's visited all of the top programs in America, and our facilities are number one, which shouldn't be a surprise because we just paid $150 million for him. So we'll see when he gets that final visit in. They're going to have like a summer, spring visit series coming through where all these big time players are coming through. Nebraska, they have some ground to make up, but it's not out of reach. And the thing too, we'll go into a little bit of his stats from his sophomore season. I love his ability to do both run and pass, but he is not like what I would call a dual threat quarterback. He can run, but it is not like something that he actively like is trying to run. He's not going to be a guy that as a quarterback, he's running 5 to 10 to 15 times a game like we saw. There's my dog barking. Like we saw with like Adrian Martinez. He's going to be like a more athletic version of Dylan Raiola. He can make all of the throws. He's 6'3", 190 pounds. He threw for 3,100 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions at a completion rate of 68% at Carmel High School. He averaged 280 yards per game, and this is stats according to Max Preps. He's got a big arm. He's accurate. He can make all of the throws. But like I said, he's not a runner, but he's not a statue. He's capable of running. He had 41 carries for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns last season. I'm really curious to see that next step because now he's a national prospect. Everyone's going to be keying on him. They're going to change their defensive game plans in high school to stop him. What is his stats, or what are his stats next season? How does he progress? How does he handle the change of schemes to stop specifically him, which I'm sure they were doing that last year, but I imagine like, okay, this kid's a sophomore. Like, how good can he really be? Well, apparently this kid's an absolute freak. Nebraska could have an insane QB room by the time Trae Taylor comes to Lincoln, if he does commit. Well, we're hoping he does. But you could have Dayton Raiola, you could have Trae Taylor, and you could have TJ Lateef. Those would be your 3 quarterbacks, your 3 scholarship quarterbacks. You'd have a 4-star in TJ Lateef, Elite 11 finalist. You'd have a borderline 5-star in Trae Taylor. And you'd have Dayton Raiola, who's a 3-star, but I think he still needs some development. That's still 3 dang good options at the quarterback position. That's all I've got for today, so make sure you stay tuned. We are going to be dropping a video about Nebraska stadium renovations. Troy Dannon did an interview with a local news station in Nebraska, so we're going to kind of recap some of his comments, and then I'm going to give you a brutally honest but realistic take on the stadium renovation. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you like, you comment, subscribe, share our videos, make sure that you're getting them on Twitter and you're sharing them on Facebook and all that stuff. Let your friends and your family know. And if you'd like, become a member as well. When we do live chats, we'll have a bunch of different stuff that we do for our members. So make sure and stay tuned to the voice of college football.